In the middle of a bright and peaceful afternoon, when the streets were busy with cars and children were playing in their yards, every screen in America suddenly turned black without warning, and people stopped in confusion as the flickering light of televisions, phones, and billboards all vanished, leaving only a deep, unnatural silence. Then, without any image, a low voice came through the darkness, slow and heavy, as if coming from somewhere far beyond the sky, saying they have arrived, and then nothing. The voice cut out, and the screens went blank again, leaving people frozen where they stood with the strange weight of those words pressing on their minds. No one knew who had spoken or what it meant, but across the country, panic began to stir. The government quickly appeared on the news, claiming it was nothing more than a system glitch caused by a satellite malfunction, urging people to return to their normal lives. But not everyone believed them. In a small office at the University of Colorado, Dr. Evan Carter sat at his desk staring at the encrypted message that had just appeared on his private astronomy network account. It was a sequence of coordinates plotted across the night sky, a star map with faint red lines showing movements that should not exist, objects changing position in perfect unnatural patterns. His hands tightened on the paper printout because he knew stars did not move like this. Whatever these were, they were close, very close. He tried calling his old student Mia Torres, now working for a high-tech private space security firm, and when she answered, her voice was low and tense, telling him she had been watching the same patterns and that satellite images were being erased in real time, as if someone or something did not want anyone to see them. Evan drove to meet her that night under a sky that felt too quiet when he arrived at her small apartment. She pulled him inside without a word, locking the door before showing him her computer. Screen live feeds from orbital satellites flickered and vanished, replaced by generic stock images of Earth. The truth was being hidden. Carefully, deliberately, she showed him one last captured image before the feed was cut off. A massive metallic shadow hanging behind the moon, its surface covered in strange, symmetrical patterns. And though it did not move in the image, Mia's voice shook as she told him the shadow was changing position in space, inching closer to Earth in a way that matched the coordinates from his map. They sat in silence, the hum of her computer loud in the room, as they both realized this was no ordinary object, no meteor, no abandoned satellite. The size alone meant it could be a station or a ship. The air felt heavy, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Evan said the words neither of them wanted to speak. "It's not from here." Mia closed her eyes for a second, as if trying to believe it could be something else. But the image remained burned into her mind, a silent shape hiding in darkness, moving toward their home. Outside the city, lights flickered, and for just a moment the power cut out, plunging everything into darkness. When it returned, Evan thought he saw something strange in the night sky. A brief glimmer like metal reflecting sunlight. Though the sun had already set far away in space, that shadow continued to move, and neither of them knew how much time was left before it arrived. The morning after the strange broadcast, the city looked normal on the surface. Cars moved along busy streets and people hurried to work, but an uneasy feeling spread like a shadow. People whispered about the voice on the screens. Some called it a prank. Others claimed it was a secret government test. But Evan Carter knew better. He sat in his small kitchen, sipping cold coffee, his mind replaying the image Mia had shown him, the enormous shadow hiding behind the moon, its movement slow but deliberate. His phone buzzed with a secure message from an unknown number. It contained only 3 words: "They are watching." He glanced toward the window, feeling the quiet hum of the world around him, as if even the wind was holding back its breath. He decided to meet Mia again, and within an hour they were driving to an isolated rest stop outside the city, away from cameras and prying ears. Mia was pale, her eyes scanning the empty road before she pulled a small encrypted tablet from her bag. She said she had been contacted by someone inside NASA, a whistleblower, who used the codename Ghost. According to Ghost, The object was not a meteor or abandoned station. It was a warship, and it was scanning Earth's defense systems piece by piece before any attack could begin. Evan listened without speaking, but inside his chest, his heartbeat felt heavy. Mia continued telling him, Ghost claimed there had been multiple signals from the object, not in human language, but in a deep frequency that interfered with communications worldwide. These pulses were building in strength, and no one knew what would happen when they peaked. While she spoke, Evan noticed a subtle vibration in the air, not from the car engine, but deeper, almost like a faint growl. The sound grew until it became a low pulse, and suddenly, both their phones went black. The car radio died. The streetlights along the empty road blinked out, and they were left in an eerie silence that pressed into their ears. The pulse stopped as quickly as it had begun, and then, in the sky above them, tiny glowing shapes appeared, dozens at first, then hundreds, their lights like cold stars moving fast. They were descending toward Earth, breaking into formations that looked too precise to be natural. Evan and Mia stared upward, unable to move. The shapes spread across the horizon before vanishing into the clouds. The power returned. The car radio crackled alive, but every channel carried nothing but static. Mia slammed her foot on the gas, heading toward her office. She said they needed to get the last image Ghost had sent before the feeds were erased when they arrived. The building was dark, the security system offline. She unlocked the heavy door and they stepped inside. The air inside felt charged like the moments before a storm. Her computer flickered to life on emergency power, revealing the image Ghost had left. It was sharper than the last one, showing the massive alien craft in chilling detail, vast panels of black metal carved with strange symmetrical lines, and what looked like weapon arrays stretching across its surface, but that was not the worst part. The image also showed dozens of smaller ships detaching from the main body and heading directly toward Earth. Mia's hands shook as she tried to save the file to an offline drive, but the computer screen glitched and a line of strange symbols appeared. The room filled again with that deep humming sound. The lights dimmed and Evan felt a strange pressure in his head, as if the pulse was inside his skull. He staggered backward, gripping the desk while Mia shouted his name, and just as suddenly the sensation stopped. They stood breathing hard in the dim light outside in the distance. Faint rumbling echoed across the night sky, and the first streaks of alien drones cut through the clouds headed toward the cities below. The drones came in like silent shadows, gliding through the clouds without the roar of engines, their cold metallic forms reflecting the faint glow of the city lights they spread in perfect patterns, moving with a precision that no human aircraft could match. At first, people thought they were some kind of military exercise. But then the attacks began. Power stations went dark one by one. Communication towers exploded in showers of sparks, and the internet vanished across entire regions. Evan and Mia sat in the darkened office, watching the chaos unfold through the last working security cameras. Every image felt like a warning of what was to come. Streets were filled with panicked crowds, emergency sirens wailed in the distance and above. The black sky seemed alive with moving shapes. Evan tried to reach out to the International Space Defense Network through a secure line, but every attempt failed. The signal was jammed completely. Mia paced back and forth, her mind racing for a way to get the truth to the public, but she knew the government would bury it before anyone could understand what was happening. Then her encrypted tablet buzzed again. It was Ghost. His message was short. They are not here to talk. They are here to finish what they started centuries ago. Evan frowned, confused by the idea of centuries ago, but Ghost sent another file before disappearing from the connection. This one was an old photograph taken in black and white. It showed a massive crater in the middle of a desert and men in uniforms standing beside something half buried in the sand. Something not of this world. Mia enlarged the image to reveal jagged black metal covered in markings identical to those on the alien warship outside. Evan felt a chill run through him. Ghost's last words in the message echoed in his mind. They came before and they failed. Mia remembered something about classified alien artifacts stored in abandoned government facilities. She pulled out a map, marking a location deep in the desert where one such site was rumored to exist without waiting. They left the office, driving into the night as the drone attacks spread behind them. The highways were nearly empty except for military convoys moving. In the opposite direction, their headlights cutting sharp lines through the darkness. Hours later, they reached the outskirts of the desert, the air heavy with heat. Even at night, the site looked abandoned. Rusted fences sagged under their own weight, and a faded sign warned trespassers to keep out inside. They found a crumbling warehouse filled with dust and silence, but in the center, under a heavy tarp, lay something that seemed to breathe with a faint pulse of light pulling the cover away. Revealed a strange object about the size of a suitcase made of the same black metal as the warship. When Evan touched it, the object vibrated and a thin beam of light shot upward, forming a floating map in the air. The map did not show Earth, it showed dozens of planets marked in various colors, and one of them, a small blue sphere, glowed in red as if marked for destruction. Mia stared at the map, unable to speak, because she understood what it meant. Earth was part of a larger list, and it was next. The beam faded, leaving them in the dark once again. Outside, in the desert sky, a low, distant rumble began to grow. And when they stepped outside, they saw the horizon glowing red as dozens of alien drones moved like a storm toward their position. The red glow on the horizon grew brighter with each passing second until the entire desert seemed to shimmer under its light. The air trembled with a deep, unnatural hum that made Evan's chest feel heavy. Mia grabbed the artifact and pulled him back, into the warehouse. But the sound was already inside their bones, a vibration that seemed to whisper in a language they could not understand. Evan forced himself to focus, remembering the map the artifact had shown them, planets marked in colors, Earth in red. And he realized with a cold certainty that this was not a random invasion. This was the final step in something much older than humanity. Mia searched the dusty shelves until she found a stack of rotting crates, each one stamped with the symbol of an eagle clutching arrows inside. They found yellowed documents, photographs, and strange metal shards that looked like fragments of the same alien material scattered across the desert floor. In some old battle she read quickly, skimming. Military reports from the late 1800s describing unexplained sky fires, missing settlements, and unidentified machines buried in sand. It became clear that Earth had fought a hidden war long ago, and history had erased it. The artifact in her hands was a piece of a weapon built by humans and rebel aliens together. The reports called these allies the Shard beings, who had once broken away from the invaders in a desperate attempt to stop them, but the weapon had never been completed. Its pieces, scattered and hidden in secret places to prevent the enemy from finding them. Mia looked at Evan with a grim urgency. The Shard must still be out there if they survived this long. They might be watching now, as if in answer the artifact flared to life without warning, filling the room with blinding white light, and when their vision cleared, a figure stood before them. Not physically, but as a shimmering projection, its features sharp and inhuman eyes glowing like molten silver. The figure spoke. In halting English, its voice like the echo of stone. We are the Shard, and we remember our promise. It told them that the warship in orbit carried the same weapon that had burned entire worlds, but that the incomplete human Shard device could counter. It, if rebuilt, the projection warned them that the mothership's main cannon was charging, and that when it reached full power, nothing on Earth could survive. Then the figure showed them the location of the next piece of the weapon, hidden far from the desert, under a place humans considered untouchable. A famous American landmark, whose name the Shard refused to speak in case the enemy was listening. Evan felt a deep chill, because he already knew where it was, and so did Mia. They packed what they could and prepared to leave. But outside, the rumbling in the distance became a roar. The alien drones had reached the outer fence, moving with a terrifying coordination, their black metal shells reflecting the blood-red glow of the sky. Evan started the old truck they had found behind the warehouse, and they sped into the desert with the artifact in Mia's lap, the projection still flickering faintly as if the shard were watching their escape. The road ahead was nothing but shifting sand, and the sound of the drones grew louder with every mile. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and a massive shape burst from the dunes, an alien machine twice the size of their vehicle, its long, segmented limbs stabbing into the sand as it pursued them. Mia gripped the dashboard, shouting for Evan to go faster. The creature moved like liquid metal flowing over the ground, its glowing eyes fixed on the artifact in her hands. The truck engine screamed as Evan pushed it to its limit, the machine closing in until it was so near they could see the strange markings etched into its body, the same markings they had seen on the warship then. Without warning, the artifact emitted a piercing tone, and a wave of pale light rippled outward. Striking the machine, it froze mid-stride, its limbs twitching before collapsing into the sand as if its systems had been shut down. Evan didn't slow down until the lights of a distant highway came into view. The artifact dimmed again, its job done. For now. But both of them knew the drones would not stop hunting, and that the closer they came to the landmark, the more dangerous things would become. The highway stretched ahead in a lonely silver ribbon cutting through the dark hills, the hum of the truck's old engine, the only sound between Evan and Mia. The artifact sat on Mia's lap, faintly pulsing like a heartbeat, as if it could sense. The direction they needed to go, the shard projection, had shown them just enough for Evan to recognize their destination, and it was not a place anyone could approach without drawing attention. The landmark was a fortress of tourists, cameras, and security. The kind of place that would be locked down instantly if word of an alien invasion reached the public. Mia kept glancing at the sky, where the faint glimmer of the mothership's shadow loomed larger each night. Like a storm cloud, slowly. Swallowing the stars, they drove through small towns where the streets were strangely empty. The power still out in most places, radios, silent cell towers dead. Yet the silence felt wrong, like the towns were holding their breath for something they knew was coming. As they neared the landmark's outer boundary, they left the truck hidden in a grove of trees and continued on foot, moving under cover of night clouds, hiding the moonlight. Mia's breathing was sharp in the cold air, her grip tight. On the artifact, they slipped past the first security fence using the gaps Ghost had described in his old notes. Inside the outer perimeter, the place felt almost unreal. The massive stone walls and carved shapes lit faintly by emergency lights running. On backup, power shadows stretched across the ground, twisting into shapes that looked alive. The artifact grew warmer in Mia's hands, its pulse faster, guiding them toward a maintenance hatch near the base of the monument. Evan pried it open with a rusted bar, and they climbed down into a narrow tunnel. The air damp and stale, the sound of dripping water echoing off the walls as they moved deeper. Mia's flashlight beam caught glimpses of strange markings etched into the stone not human. Markings, but the same alien patterns from the warship and the desert machine. She realized the landmark itself had been built over an older structure, a shell hiding something far older than history books admitted after nearly an hour of moving. Through winding tunnels, they entered a vast underground chamber at its center. Floating above a circular platform was the second piece of the weapon, a dark metallic sphere the size of a human head with veins of glowing blue light running through. The air around it vibrated softly, as if the object was alive. Mia stepped forward, but the moment her fingers touched the sphere, the chamber shuddered. The blue light pulsed violently, and a deep mechanical roar echoed from the tunnels they had. Come through the floor, shook dust falling from the ceiling, and in the darkness, shapes began to move alien drones, their black armor reflecting the sphere's glow. Evan grabbed Mia, pulling her back as a swarm of the machines crawled down the walls. and sealing their movements spider-like and inhuman. The artifact in Mia's other hand flared with a blinding white light, freezing the drones for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Evan to grab the sphere from its pedestal the moment. He did the chamber's floor split open, revealing a dark abyss and a column of light shooting upward through the ceiling. They could hear the roar of engines above the ground shattering as something massive descended into the chamber. It was not just a drone, but an alien war walker, its towering frame almost filling the cavern, its head shaped like a blade, its eyes glowing like molten gold. It reached for them with long metallic limbs, the heat from its body burning the air. Evan and Mia ran the tunnels, shaking behind them as the walker smashed through walls, the artifact and sphere both pulsing violently, as if warning them of the danger. They reached the maintenance hatch, climbing up into the freezing night, only to see the sky. Burning, the invasion had begun in full. Dozens of alien ships streaking down like falling stars, striking cities far beyond the horizon. The mothership itself was moving into low orbit, its shadow swallowing the stars. The shard's voice echoed faintly. From the artifact, the final piece is in their heart. You must take it before the cannon fires. Evan and Mia exchanged a grim look. They both understood what it meant. The last part of the weapon was inside the alien mothership itself, and the only way to get it was to go straight into the heart of the enemy. The mothership filled half the sky now, its black surface blotting out constellations that had shone for thousands of years. The air itself seemed heavier under its shadow, and every few minutes the deep vibration of its engines rolled through the ground like distant thunder. Evan and Mia stood on the ridge looking at it, their breath steaming in the cold night. The artifact in Mia's hands pulsed like a living thing, brighter and faster, as if calling them upward. The shard's final message had been clear. The last piece of the weapon was in the heart of the alien ship, and without it, Earth had no chance. The problem was reaching it. The alien fleet swarmed above every major. City drones and hybrid soldiers pouring into the streets to crush any resistance. They had seen them on the drive here. Abducted humans twisted into something else, their eyes glowing faint alien light, their movements perfect and mechanical controlled. From somewhere deep within the mothership, there was no negotiating with them, no saving them, unless the weapon worked. Mia had secured a plan through Ghost's last contact, a hidden hangar in the mountains where a stolen human military shuttle waited. It was old, untested, and not meant for this kind of mission, but it could get them close enough to latch onto the alien hull. They traveled through the dark, avoiding patrols until they found the hangar, the battered shuttle sitting in silence, like it was holding its breath once aboard. Evan powered up the systems, the engines whining in protest as if waking from a long sleep. The cockpit lit up in pale blue light, the artifact resting between them. The launch was rough, the ship shuddering, as it cut through the thin upper atmosphere, the stars disappearing into the vast black shadow of the mothership. They could see it now in full, terrible detail, its surface stretching endlessly, covered in towers and weapon ports, glowing with slow, rhythmic light. They approached under cover of debris fields, using chunks of destroyed satellites to mask their signal. Finally, they reached a docking point, clamping onto the hull. The metal groaned under them like some enormous living creature. They entered through a maintenance vent, crawling into the cold metallic corridors inside the ship. The air was thin and heavy with a faint metallic taste. Lights pulsed in slow waves down the walls, and strange symbols crawled like shadows across. The metal as if alive. They moved in silence, following the artifact's glow until they reached the core chamber. The moment they stepped inside, their breath caught the final piece of the weapon floated in the center, a crystalline shard suspended. In a column of shimmering energy, it pulsed in perfect rhythm with the artifact in Mia's hands. But surrounding it in neat rows were hundreds of stasis pods, and inside each one, a human suspended in a strange liquid, their eyes faintly glowing. They realized with horror these were the abducted taken over decades, maybe centuries, and turned into hybrids as soldiers for the invaders as they approached the shard. The pods began to open, releasing the hybrids into the chamber, their movements, eerily calm weapons forming from the black armor that grew out of their skin. Evan grabbed the shard, but the moment he did, the chamber roared to life, alarms blaring, the ship shuddering as if in pain. A voice not human echoed through the walls. "You will not take what is ours?" The hybrids surged forward faster than any human could move. The shard's leader appeared again in the artifact's projection, his voice sharp with urgency. "Use it now." Mia placed the crystalline shard into the artifact, the two pieces locking together in a burst of white light. The energy wave blasted outward, freezing the hybrids in mid-step. Their eyes flickering, the projection told them the weapon needed one final pulse to disable the entire invasion, but charging. It would draw the mothership's full attention. Already the chamber shook under heavy fire as the ship's defenses turned inward, trying to destroy the core. Evan shouted that they had to move, but the shard's leader said someone must stay to complete the charge before vanishing in a blaze of light. The artifact screamed in their hands, the final pulse building. They ran through the collapsing corridors, the light behind them growing until it felt like a second sun. The pulse erupted, washing through the ship and down into Earth's atmosphere. Drones fell from the sky, hybrid soldiers dropped motionless in the streets. The mothership's weapons went dark, but its self-destruct countdown began a low rumble, turning into a violent quake. Evan and Mia reached the shuttle with seconds to spare, blasting free, as the alien ship tore itself apart in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rattled their bones, and the burning wreckage scattered across the upper atmosphere, lighting the sky. In streaks of fire below, Earth's cities lay in ruin. But the streets were silent, the invasion broken. Evan looked at Mia and said, "This wasn't their first war, and it won't be their last." Far above, the last fragments of the mothership burned, like dying stars vanishing into the dark.